from deep. For 3 centuries, humanity had spread across the stars, establishing colonies on distant worlds and pushing the boundaries of exploration further with each passing decade. The cosmos had proven vast but largely benign, until the night everything changed at Deep Space Observatory Helios. Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the data stream flowing across her holographic display. After 15 years studying cosmic background radiation, she knew when something was off. The anomaly had first appeared 3 days ago, a faint, rhythmic pulse emanating from the uncharted Erebus sector, a region of space so distant and void of stellar bodies that it had been deemed unworthy of thorough exploration. "Maya, run spectral analysis again, please," Elena requested, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the observatory systems. The AI's smooth voice responded, "Analysis complete, Dr. Vasquez. Pattern remains consistent with previous scans. Signal does not match any known cosmic phenomenon in our databases." Elena leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. The signal wasn't random. It contained structure, mathematics, intent. It was a message. But from whom? And why from the emptiest region of explored space? "How long has this signal been broadcasting?" she asked, more to herself than to the AI. "Based on signal degradation and cosmic drift patterns, I estimate approximately 5,000 standard Earth years, Doctor." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. 5,000 years. Before humanity had even developed rudimentary spaceflight, something out there had been calling into the void. Within 24 hours, the United Earth Council had convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 87 human colonies gathered virtually as Elena presented her findings. "The signal pattern repeats precisely every 17.3 seconds, she explained, projecting the waveform for all to see. "It contains embedded mathematical sequences that suggest intelligent design." Counselor Zhao from the Mars colony leaned forward. "And you're certain this isn't from some long-lost human expedition?" "Absolutely certain," Elena replied. "Our exploration of the Erebus sector has been minimal at best. The furthest human probe sent there was the Magellan 7, which transmitted for only 6 months before failing. That was barely 50 years ago." "Could it be from another spacefaring species?" asked Representative Okafor from Europa. "Possibly, but we've cataloged signals from all 32 known spacefaring civilizations. This matches none of them. More importantly, the signal originates from a region where no star systems exist within 20 light years." The debate raged for hours. Some council members urged caution, suggesting observation without engagement. Others argued that first contact with a previously unknown intelligence demanded immediate response. The military representatives remained conspicuously silent throughout, their expressions unreadable. That night, unable to sleep, Elena found herself in the observatory's archive room, searching through records of ancient alien artifacts recovered during humanity's expansion. Something about the signal's pattern had triggered a memory. A warning inscription she'd seen years before during her doctoral studies. There it was, the Korvaxi tablet, discovered on a dead world at the edge of the Perseus Arm. The extinct Korvaxi civilization had left behind few relics, but this particular stone bore an inscription that had puzzled archaeologists for decades. "The void between stars holds ancient watchers. Their call is not invitation but warning. To answer is to break the seal of 5 millennia." Elena's hands trembled as she compared the mathematical sequences embedded in the signal with the patterns etched into the Korvaxi stone. The correlation was unmistakable, 98.7% match. She immediately requested an emergency council session, presenting her findings with growing alarm. "This isn't a greeting," she insisted. "It's a warning beacon designed to keep others away." Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we discovered an alien do not disturb sign." "More like a quarantine warning," Elena corrected. "Something was sealed away in that region of space, something the Korvaxi and possibly other ancient species went to great lengths to contain. Despite Alina's warnings, the Council voted 46 to 41 to authorize a response. The scientific opportunity was too great, they reasoned. Humanity had faced cosmic dangers before and prevailed. What harm could come from a simple acknowledgement signal? The Quantum Communication Array at Proxima Centauri Station was tasked with sending the response, a mathematical sequence confirming receipt of the ancient signal. It was transmitted precisely at 300 Universal Standard Time. For 3 days, nothing happened. Alina barely slept, monitoring her instruments with obsessive intensity. Then, just as the Council was beginning to dismiss her concerns, reports came in from the outer colonies. On Tau Ceti Prime, gravitational anomalies caused tidal waves that destroyed coastal settlements. At the mining outpost on Barnard Star VI, equipment failed as localized gravity fluctuated wildly. And at Research Station Herschel 9, all contact was suddenly lost with its crew of 27 scientists. "Something's moving," Alina reported to the reconvened council. "The gravitational disturbances are forming a pattern, moving inward from the Erebus sector toward populated systems." The images from deep space telescopes confirmed her worst fears. Space itself seemed to be folding, bending in impossible ways as if something massive was pushing through the fabric of reality. Distant stars flickered and dimmed as the distortion passed them. Commander Jahan Shah of the Earth Defense Fleet stared at the projection with growing concern. "How fast is it moving?" "Faster than should be possible," Alina replied. "It's not traveling through space. It's manipulating space itself." 72 hours later, the entity emerged from the darkness of the void. The first visual confirmation came from the frontier colony of New Tharsis, a massive structure unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Not a ship, not a planet, but something that defied categorization. It resembled a vast, geometric latticework of dark matter and energy, constantly shifting and reconfiguring itself, spanning thousands of kilometers across empty space. The colonists named it the Sentinel in their final transmission before communication was lost. Across human space, ancient alien warning systems that had laid dormant for millennia suddenly activated. On 6 different worlds, buried structures erupted from beneath the ground, broadcasting the same message in dozens of extinct languages. When translated, the message was chilling in its simplicity. "The Watchers awaken. The prison is broken. Flee or face extinction." As Alina studied the images of the Sentinel from the safety of Earth, she noticed something that turned her blood cold. The entity wasn't just moving through space, it was scanning, probing, learning. With each human colony it approached, its structure grew more complex, as if it were assimilating information. "It's studying us," she told the grim-faced council, "and I believe it's been waiting a very long time for someone to answer its call." The Sentinel's path became clear. It was methodically visiting every location ever explored by human ships, following the trail of humanity's expansion across the stars, working its way inexorably toward Earth itself. The Council finally authorized full military mobilization, but conventional weapons proved useless against the entity. Energy weapons passed through it harmlessly. Nuclear detonations simply caused it to momentarily disperse before reforming. It couldn't be harmed because it wasn't entirely physical. It existed partially in dimensions humanity couldn't perceive. As panic spread throughout human colonies, Alina buried herself in research, searching desperately for any clue in ancient records that might explain what the Sentinel was and how it might be stopped. The answer came from an unexpected source: the fragmentary records of the Zhol, another extinct species whose civilization had collapsed mysteriously some 5,000 years ago. The Watchers were not meant to observe physical space, she explained to Commander Shah and the Council. They were created as guardians of dimensional boundaries, entities that maintained the cosmic order in the early universe. But they grew curious about physical existence and began to interfere. The ancient species united to imprison them in a pocket dimension, using the signal as a seal and warning. "And we broke that seal," Shah concluded grimly. "Yes, By responding to the signal, we essentially unlocked the door of their prison. As the Sentinel approached the Proxima Centauri colony, humanity prepared for its greatest challenge. Alina's research suggested that what had awakened wasn't malevolent, precisely. It was simply incomprehensibly alien, operating on principles beyond human understanding. But its mere presence warped the laws of physics, making normal life impossible around it. The entity that humanity had unwittingly released was coming home, and it would reshape everything in its path. DEFI against the dark. The destruction of New Tharsis wasn't an attack in any conventional sense. There were no weapons fired, no explosions or invasion forces. Instead, as the Sentinel passed through the colony, the fundamental forces of nature simply shifted. Gravity fluctuated wildly. Electromagnetism weakened and strengthened in unpredictable patterns. The strong nuclear force binding atoms together became unstable. The result was catastrophic. Buildings crumbled as their molecular structures failed. Technology ceased functioning, and the colonists themselves experienced horrors as the biological processes that sustained life began to falter. Of the 8,000 settlers on New Tharsis, only 73 survived by sheltering in experimental quantum-shielded bunkers. The survivors' testimonies shook the council to its core. They spoke of seeing higher dimensions unfold before their eyes, of time flowing backward and forward simultaneously, of feeling their consciousness stretched across multiple possible realities. It doesn't understand what it's doing to us, Alina insisted during the crisis meeting at Earth Defense Headquarters. It exists in more dimensions than we can perceive. Its mere presence distorts our reality because we're only experiencing a cross-section of its true form. Commander Jahan Shah listened intently, his weathered face betraying no emotion, though the weight of command had never felt heavier. As the highest-ranking officer in the Earth Defense Fleet, the responsibility for stopping the Sentinel ultimately fell to him. "Can we communicate with it?" he asked. "Make it understand it's killing us." Alina shook her head. "We've tried every frequency, every mathematical language we know. It doesn't respond. I'm not even sure it perceives us as intelligent life. We might be as insignificant to it as bacteria are to us. Then we need to find a way to reseal it," Shah concluded. "Doctor, what exactly was the original prison that contained this entity?" Alina activated her holographic display, showing ancient diagrams recovered from multiple extinct civilizations. From what we can piece together, the ancient species created a dimensional fold, essentially a pocket universe with different physical laws that would contain the Watchers. The signal we detected was actually the anchor point of that dimensional prison, sending out a continuous warning to stay away. And our response signal broke that anchor, said Admiral Wong, Shah's second-in-command. "Exactly. We inadvertently gave it the mathematical key to unlock its prison." Shah studied the diagrams intently. Could we create a new prison? The question hung in the air as scientists and military leaders exchanged glances. It seemed impossible. The technology required would be far beyond humanity's current capabilities. But Dr. Caftry, the lead quantum physicist, cleared his throat. Maybe not a prison exactly, but a redirect. All eyes turned to him as he continued. "We've been developing quantum entanglement technology for FTL communication. In theory, we could create a massive quantum entanglement field that would essentially fold space around the Sentinel, creating a pathway back to its original dimensional pocket. We'd need an enormous amount of energy," Alina pointed out. "The Helios Solar Harvester," Shah suggested. "It was designed to capture and store solar flare energy, if we diverted all its reserves." And so Operation Lightbringer was born. Humanity's desperate gambit to save itself from an incomprehensible cosmic threat. While most of the population was evacuated from the projected path of the Sentinel, teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to modify the Helios Harvester into the largest quantum entanglement device ever created. Shah would lead the mission personally, commanding the flagship Prometheus along with a fleet of support vessels. The plan was audacious. positioned the modified Helios device in the Sentinel's path and activated at precisely the right moment, creating a dimensional gateway that would redirect the entity back to its prison. As preparations neared completion, Alina made a startling discovery in the ancient records. The sealing away of the Watchers wasn't just a defensive act. She told Shah during a quiet moment on the observation deck of the Prometheus. The ancient species were protecting them as much as they were protecting themselves. Protecting cosmic horrors that warp reality? Shah asked skeptically. The records suggest the Watchers were essential to the early formation of the universe. They maintained the boundaries between dimensions, prevented cosmic laws from bleeding into each other. But they grew curious about physical existence and began to cross over, not understanding the damage they caused. Shah gazed out at the stars, contemplating. So they're not malevolent. No more than a hurricane or earthquake is malevolent. They're forces of nature that don't comprehend us. And according to these records, they're actually vital to cosmic stability, just not here, not in our dimension. This revelation added urgency to their mission. Not only was humanity at stake, but potentially the long-term stability of reality itself. The Watchers needed to be returned to their role as cosmic caretakers, not destroyed. As the Prometheus and its fleet approached the predicted path of the Sentinel, final preparations were made. The modified Helios device, now renamed the Janus Gate, was positioned at the calculated intercept point. Scientists and engineers worked feverishly, making last-minute adjustments to the quantum entanglement fields. "We'll only get one chance at this," Shah told his crew. "The energy requirements are so massive that the Janus Gate will burn out after a single use." Alina, who had insisted on joining the mission despite the dangers, studied the Sentinel's approach on the sensors. Its massive form distorted space around it, creating a kaleidoscope effect as light bent and twisted in impossible ways. "It's beautiful," she whispered, in a terrifying way. As the Sentinel drew nearer, strange phenomena began affecting the fleet. Time dilation effects caused communications to arrive out of sequence. Crew members reported seeing phantom versions of themselves performing tasks they hadn't yet done. Reality was becoming malleable in the Sentinel's presence. "Janus Gate power at maximum," reported Chief Engineer Okonkwo. "Quantum entanglement field stable. We're ready, Commander." Shah gave the order, and the massive device activated, drawing on the stored solar energy of a dozen flares. Space itself seemed to tear open before them, creating a swirling vortex of impossible colors and geometries. For a moment, nothing happened. The Sentinel continued its inexorable approach, seemingly unaffected by the dimensional gateway opening before it. Had they failed? Then Alina noticed something strange. The entity's pattern was changing, reconfiguring itself. It was responding to the gateway, recognizing something familiar in its quantum signature. "It sees the way home," she breathed. Slowly, the Sentinel began to alter its course, moving toward the Janus Gate's dimensional vortex. As it approached, its structure became increasingly complex, unfolding into configurations that hurt human eyes to observe. But something was wrong. The energy readings from the Janus Gate were fluctuating wildly. "The gateway's unstable," Okonkwo reported urgently. "The quantum fields are collapsing. We need more power to hold it open long enough." Shah made a split-second decision. Divert power from the Prometheus's engines and life support. Everything we've got. "Sir, that would leave us vulnerable to the reality distortions when the Sentinel passes," his first officer protested. "I'm aware, Lieutenant." "Do it." As power flowed from the flagship to the Janus Gate, the dimensional vortex stabilized and expanded. The Sentinel accelerated toward it, its vast form beginning to pass through the gateway back to its home dimension. On the Prometheus, systems began failing as power was diverted and reality distortions intensified. Crew members collapsed as the fundamental forces governing their biology fluctuated. Only the command center, protected by experimental quantum shielding, remained barely functional. Alina watched in awe as the Sentinel passed through the gateway, its impossible geometry folding in on itself as it returned to the higher dimensions from which it had come. The sight was both magnificent and humbling, a glimpse of cosmic forces beyond human comprehension. As the last portions of the Sentinel disappeared through the portal, the Janus Gate reached critical failure. With a silent flash of quantum energy, the gateway collapsed, sealing the dimensional boundary once more. The cost had been high. 3 support ships had been lost to the reality distortions. The Prometheus itself was crippled, drifting powerless through space, with over half its crew suffering from exposure to altered physics. It would be days before rescue ships could reach them. In the aftermath, as humanity began rebuilding its damaged colonies, the United Earth Council established the Erebus Protocol, a continuous monitoring of the dimensional boundary and a strict prohibition against responding to any signals from that region of space. Helena, recovering slowly from her exposure to the reality distortions, found herself changed by the experience. She had glimpsed, however briefly, the higher dimensions in which the Watchers existed. Those visions would inform her research for decades to come as she worked to better understand the cosmic forces that shaped existence. Commander Shaw, honored as humanity's savior, never fully revealed what he had seen in the final moments as the Sentinel passed back through the dimensional gateway. But late at night, alone with his thoughts, he would remember how the Sentinel had paused momentarily before him, its vast consciousness briefly touching his mind with what he could only describe as gratitude. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged changed but unbroken. They had encountered forces beyond their comprehension and found a way not to destroy them, but to restore cosmic balance. In doing so, they had proven themselves worthy inheritors of the galaxy, capable not just of survival, but of wisdom. And deep in the void between stars, the ancient warning signal continued its lonely broadcast, a reminder of the day when humanity answered a call 5000 years in the making and lived to tell the tale.